remember just feeling like everyone in the room was kind of spinning their wheels and just not positive about where things were going. They had all this passion built up, but they just felt hindered and didn't feel like they could do this action behind what they were talking about. And I was like, I think there's something we can do.
Well, friends, we are very excited to have a special guest on today's podcast episode. Today, we have Anna joining us from Atlas Free, and we are excited to share about the wonderful work that Atlas Free does, as well as a very unique initiative that they have, which is called their Impact Projects. And we want to share with you not only about the Impact Projects, but some really unique collaboration that is happening between Greenlight Operation and Atlas Free through this. And even we want to highlight some ways that you could get involved as well with the wonderful work of Atlas Free, especially if you're somebody who serves actively in the anti-trafficking field and are looking for a network to get plugged into. They have just a plethora of resources, which I don't want to share all right now because Anna is going to talk about that in our episode here. So Anna, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to connect with you and have had the privilege of getting to know you over the past few years, and what an honor it is just to continue in that partnership and deepen some of the work that we get to do together too. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been an honor getting to see Greenlight Operation as you've grown throughout the last few years and as you're officially opening your residential program. So we've been cheering you on for quite some time, and we're really excited about this impact project.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, Anna, would you be willing to share with us about your specific role at Atlas Free, as well as the services that Atlas Free offers, and even some of those areas that you're growing into, if you're able to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the mission broadly at Atlas Free is to accelerate and resource the fight against sex trafficking and exploitation. So Atlas Free has been around since 2012, where we were founded basically by our founder, Jeremy Valorand, who witnessed the stark contrast between freedom and exploitation after his visit to India and working with a program that served survivors in India. And so he essentially mobilized his friends and he said, let's do something that we love to fight the things that we hate. And so the thing that they love is to climb mountains, and they decided to climb they decided to raise $1 for every vertical foot of the mountain that they were climbing. So over $14,000, which I cannot imagine climbing that tall, but I think it's phenomenal. And it was called Climb for Captives. And it's kind of the heart of our work, and it's where Atlas Free really draws parallels for everyday people who often feel helpless for such a big issue. It feels like something that they just don't know how to engage with. And so we just emphasize the inherent value of all human beings and find ways for people to engage doing things that they love. So that's kind of where our start came from. And what we do with these funds and what we do with resources that we provide for our network is we resource locally led efforts. So our network spans across over 40 countries. It's over 150 organizations, each of them locally led by individuals who are really called to this work and who are doing it for amazing reasons. I get to hear from a lot of them, and I every day, that's kind of one of my favorite parts of my job, is hearing people's passion and why they're in this work. But these organizations span across a variety of areas. Some of them are doing direct service for survivors of human trafficking. Some are doing demand disruption or perpetrator accountability. Some do prevention, and then some do policy and advocacy. So all different areas of anti-trafficking, all different areas that we strive to resource through a variety of methods, some of which I am sure you and your team have engaged with in our web portal. Those include kind of training materials to better equip capacity of organizations, to ensure that staff is properly trained and feels equipped to serve survivors in direct care. Organizational capacity, so making sure that you got the resources to sustain your staff and to make sure you've got policies and procedures in place and things of that nature, as well as funding opportunities, as Greenlight Project has been an awardee of our impact projects. So that's a quick glimpse into a lot of our offerings, but as I've said, it really is centered on supporting those who are doing the direct work, and bettering this field together, moving the needle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And we have been so grateful for Atlas Free and like you said, the resources that are available because for many agencies that didn't exist even a decade ago, it's a scrappy bunch of people, trying to figure out how can we get involved with this dark issue, but do it well. And something that has become not just a resource, but something that's essential is community in this and knowing and trusting other agencies and leaders in this field where we can sharpen one another. And now we have been so grateful for the opportunities to network with other agencies, to learn from other agencies, and those resources, like you noted, from webinars to policies and documents and updates on best practices, because at the end of the day, we want to do what is in the best interest of the survivors, but do it in a way that's trauma informed, that's evidence based. And as more of that research is coming onto the field, it is just so wonderful to be plugged into this network so that we can ensure that we are learning from others. And it also allows for agencies to not have to reinvent the wheel all the time either, when you get to hear from others of what worked and what didn't. And we want to help you, but you also, as an organization, really elevate the voices of survivors as well. And that is something that we truly admire and are grateful for, just even in the conference space to the webinars, is truly, now that we're at the stage that we are in counter trafficking efforts, where yes, it was for many, a decade or so ago, and it still is an emerging field in many ways. But now that there are many survivors who have gone through healing and recovery, it's so wonderful to be able to hear from them too. And what was that process like? What worked and what didn't? And would you share that feedback? And so it's beautiful to be able to see many survivors who have been elevated throughout your efforts as well. And so I just say that we're just so grateful for those resources. And would you be willing to share how you personally got involved in the anti-trafficking field?
Yeah, sure. It's actually fun because I'm from Pennsylvania. So my start was in Pennsylvania. I was 17 years old and I ended up sitting in on a task force meeting in my local community. I was definitely the youngest one in the room, and that was so intimidating. And so I remember just feeling like everyone in the room was kind of spinning their wheels and just not positive about where things were going. They had all this passion built up, but they just felt hindered and didn't feel like they could do this action behind what they were talking about. And I was like, I think there's something we can do. So I worked with a group and we ended up coming up with some peer-to-peer education efforts, did quite a few fundraisers and things of that nature. And so once you learn about anti-trafficking, it's very hard to leave it. It's obviously a huge issue and it has so many components that we can work on. So in college, I ended up interning with the National Trafficking Sheltered Alliance, which is an amazing organization that Greenlight Operation was a part of. Essentially a US-wide network of residential programs. And so I was able to work with them on, best practices for residential programs, and referrals for survivors to programs and things of that nature. And over the last year and a half, that organization was taken into Atlas Free. So we've combined efforts, we've combined all of this expertise and all of this amazing network to now be part of the global Atlas Free network. So my role now has really just grown on a global capacity, which is really exciting to me. So I am officially a network advisor for Atlas Free, and I am the point of contact for our Northeast US members, our Midwest US members, and all of Europe for our network.
Amazing. Wow. That is amazing. And congratulations on that too, because it is such a feat to go from being there with the National Trafficking Sheltered Alliance, which was the first of its kind to build some type of alliance in that. And it's been beautiful to see that transition into Atlas Free, and exciting to hear your expansion, because there's just so much work to be done around the world. And it's even better that we can bring in those international counterparts. And so it's been exciting to hear your updates too, and all that has been growing and expanding internationally as well. So are you international right now, or are we currently talking to you stateside?
I am in Madrid currently. So yes, I'm here with one of our partners. It's been amazing.
That's incredible. Oh my goodness. Well, Anna, would you be willing to share a little bit about the impact projects and why that is something that is a priority to Atlas Free? And I'll share. I feel like we've teased it a good bit for some of our listeners. We'll share about Greenlight Operation and the impact project specifically that we will be collaborating on with Atlas Free. But could you share just the framework of what those are and their significance?
Yeah. So impact projects really stemmed from knowing that trafficking is an ever-changing issue and that it constantly requires new tactics. So we are really looking for ways to support organizations as they're looking to innovate and expand their impacts. Kind of more of like a catalyst as they snowball and grow their efforts in a different way. So these funds are designed to empower network members to tackle critical challenges or innovate on new solutions, and to ultimately amplify their impact in their communities. So the big part of impact projects is that there is a clear start and end date to them. So they're project based. They can be, like I said, innovative projects, but they can also be kind of incubation projects. So the start of something that's going to go on for a longer period. We don't traditionally sustain business as usual with these, to ensure that obviously there's sustainable funding for, keeping your lights on and paying your staff and things of that nature. This is not one of those types of funds. It is one-time funding. And our goal with these is really that it's impact beyond this initial project, that it has this large scale impact on the field or large scale impact on your region of the world. So yeah, it's something that we're really excited about. It's something that we've worked on, and our network seems to really appreciate. And it's something that we're appreciating, just getting to read all of these projects, and can't wait to see what the impact is of Greenlight Operation. So I know we've been teasing it. We want to hear it, Jordan.
Yes, we'll go ahead and share what it is. So we are very excited to share that Greenlight Operation has been selected as one of the impact project funding recipients. And so we will be receiving $20,000 to invest in Greenlight Operations advocacy branch of services. And as Anna mentioned, this is not just business as usual. So what is the project specifically that is being done? So throughout 2026, we're excited to share that Greenlight Operation is going to be going through an expansion project for our legislative services. And so what this entails is that we are going to be intentionally hosting several events throughout the year that are going to bring together lawmakers, law enforcement, frontline workers. We truly strive for a multidisciplinary approach, and also, of course, bringing survivors to the table as well, as we talk about what are the policies that need to change in Pennsylvania so that we can see and really promote what we consider the equality model, which is a way in which we can see the prevention of human trafficking, as well as removing the barriers that exist for survivors. And then also, how can we really bring that justice for and penalize the buyers and the traffickers in that process as well? And so we've seen human trafficking becoming quite a hot topic for many of our lawmakers, but they often lack some of the essential tools that are needed to get involved. And as we've even spoken with some of our lawmakers here in Pennsylvania, it's often noted that when we ask them, why aren't you involved in the anti-trafficking policies? Why didn't you vote for them? Or even just simply, do you know that human trafficking is an issue in this state? And what we have seen is there are many lawmakers that are still unaware of the prevalence of human trafficking. But for those who are aware and that want to get involved, their challenge in getting involved that's most noted is that they are not sure if their constituents care about it or even if they're aware of it. And so for a person who is in a seat, such as a legislator, they're looking to either they want to please their constituents. That is their goal. They want to move the policies forward that their constituents believe in and care about. And so if they don't feel that individuals care about anti-trafficking policies, they won't really touch them. They're not going to get involved with it because they have to be able to justify the time and resources that are spent on it. And so Greenlight Operation has really seen an opportunity where we can not only host some events, but we could also streamline and enhance some processes in which we are able to distribute information to constituents, which would be everyday people, those who reside in Pennsylvania and even beyond, but helping them to see the bills that are being proposed, or even bills that haven't been proposed but we'd love to see move forward, and distributing those educational pieces as well as next steps on, okay, it's one thing to know, okay, well, these bills exist and here they are, but how do we, what are our actions? What should we do? And so mobilizing individuals to call, to email, and really actively engaged and get involved further. So we're going to be working with a legislative consultant for a year to be able to really enhance some of these services and further that distribution, and bring together some key stakeholders in our state so that we can really see anti-trafficking policies advance, so that we see that prevention end of it, as well as major barriers removed for survivors in their healing and recovery journey. But the heart of Greenlight always has been, how can we strategically combat human trafficking? How can we strike at the root of this while also pairing that with caring for individuals who have already been impacted and they're needing that help and support. And so this is one of those ways that we look at how can we strike at the root of human trafficking. So we're very excited for this funding that will enhance and expand our outreach throughout 2026. But we'll put the plug out there too for anyone who's interested in getting involved further. As Anna mentioned, this is a one-time funding opportunity. And so in order for us to see this sustained and moving forward, we do need the commitment from our donors and others who have a passion for this, because this work it's not all going to get solved in 1 year. That is the reality of it. But we anticipate seeing some really significant milestones that will be celebrated throughout the year. But we need your ongoing support to continue in these efforts too. So Anna, we're just so grateful. We're very excited and incredibly honored to have been selected for this. I know there are so many great projects that you guys are seeing, and many that are worthy of this funding. And so we're just so very honored to have been selected. And I wanted to ask you, because you have been part of policy discussions, and as I recall, there's been some work in your past too that you've intersected with various legislative initiatives. But would you be willing to share what you're seeing in the network as it relates to agencies looking to get involved with anti-trafficking efforts, or even just simply the impact that policy has in the counter-trafficking field?
Yeah. I definitely am such a proponent for working on policy, especially as many direct service organizations should and do. And I think it really sets a precedent of what's culturally acceptable, right? I often think of policy as the will of the people, or, reflecting public understanding and opinion. So in that way, working on policy kind of kills two birds with one stone, as you're saying. It increases awareness about the issue of trafficking, but it also benefits the individuals that we're serving. So there's public interest in that, and building on that also follows the money, right? Then there's more funding for anti-trafficking, and there's more ability to serve more survivors. So I think there's just so many benefits to policy. And I think it also says to survivors that, we see you have value, we've worked hard to protect you, and to prevent future harm from happening to others. So there's just so much to be said for the need for policy and the ability of organizations to kind of walk into this field, which feels very foreign to a lot of direct service organizations, right? It feels like something that maybe is not in their wheelhouse traditionally. They might not have understanding of jargon, or legalese can sometimes be intimidating. I find myself sometimes wondering, what does this word mean in this capacity? But I think the root of it is that you're providing so much information about what's really going on in that constituency area, and providing what legislatures really need to know. So I think that there's some other reasons maybe that agencies don't get involved in advocacy. Things like capacity of organizations is often a challenge. Having the tools to make it simpler and to make it less of a heavy lift is something that we were excited about with Greenlight Operations Project, is that you're working on things that feel like they can be replicated or shared throughout our network. And organizations that might not have a specialist feel like they can kind of tap into this expertise that you're providing. But there's other reasons for not getting involved, like fear that funding might be attached to, one way of political siding, maybe that can be polarizing if you decide on a certain policy, right? Maybe you'll lose donor base in some way, and determining what that means for you and your mission is often a challenge. And then the other thing is that a lot of organizations may not feel like policy is necessarily relevant sometimes, right? They're working with an individual that needs a roof over their head and a job in this very moment. And it feels like policy can be far off in some ways. But as you know, Jordan, and as I know, it feels like this aligns so well and it benefits so many. And so that's kind of my 2 cents, that I really want more organizations to get involved in policy. And I think it's instrumental in moving the needle. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you hit on so many of those major barriers that we even hear throughout Pennsylvania. And we're fortunate to be located, just 10 minutes from our state capital here in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania is very key, as we've seen in our nation's political sphere. And again, there's a difference between politics and campaigning versus policy. But we have seen, though, many of the policies that are adopted here in Pennsylvania often really set the stage for the nation. We are considered the Keystone State. And so I'm sure you've got some home state pride as well as I do. I love the state of Pennsylvania. We've got a lot to work through. But we hope that we can model some of the efforts that can be made as well that can truly have that national impact. And but those barriers you address, they're real. And maybe some of our listeners who are engaging in this may currently be frustrated with the political climate or policy. Maybe they're wondering, will my voice even be heard? And does this matter? And to really share even just a few examples for some of those who might be listening and experiencing some of those same doubts, whether you represent an agency or you're somebody that we're saying, hey, call your local legislator. We have seen victories, even with things like the Buyer Beware Act. This was a massive piece of legislation that passed in, I want to say it was 2018 in Pennsylvania, and we see others, but the Buyer Beware Act is one in which that it propelled education forward for law enforcement. It created a fund within the criminal code so that any fines or materials that are taken from perpetrators or the traffickers, and basically those fines are going into a fund within the state that can help fund victim services and the direct care for survivors as well, and helping in that healing and recovery. That also increased some of the penalties and really just, again, it highlighted in a massive way, and it was one of the biggest shows of collaborative support I think that we have seen surrounding policy, and was a major victory. But then we had the challenge of, soon after that, we hit a global pandemic, and in some ways I think those collaborative efforts got a little bit strained. There wasn't as much in person, but we're really starting to see in this upcoming year an uptick of rallying around certain policies and bills. So some that Greenlight Operation is really keeping an eye on and promoting are things like in a very real space, when we have survivors that are wanting to heal, but they've had and they're looking for jobs and a way to sustain their freedom through decent income. You really need a way to get to your workplace. And so if their driver's license have been either taken from them by their trafficker, or because of criminal charges that they have from their time of exploitation that may serve as a barrier to them getting those, it is incredibly difficult right now for survivors to get their driver's license in Pennsylvania, which is serving as a barrier, again, to that income piece of what we see in lasting freedom. Other things like traffickers, they don't want to get their hands dirty. They're not the ones who want to carry the criminal charges. So they're putting that onto those they're victimizing. So whether it is petty theft or drug dealing or whatever else it might be, they're looking at somebody else to be that scapegoat so that they're not carrying that criminal charge, which is often, again, those that are being victimized in trafficking. And so the big question is, okay, well, during that period of exploitation, it's not fair that they were forced to do this. They didn't have a choice. And in some cases, these are life and death choices as well. And so Greenlight Operation is advocating for what we call vacatur, which is the expunging of criminal records for survivors so that during that time of exploitation, they can have those criminal records expunged. Again, looking at the long-term goals of employment and housing and how can we remove the barriers that exist for that lasting freedom. But then too, how can we increase penalties? It is so many who have followed even some of the statewide and regional sting operations. You're likely seeing that there are sting operations that occur, and then within weeks, some of these businesses are opening up again, or they're replacing those that have been extracted with vanfuls of new people. This is very common, and until we're able to crack down on the penalties, right now, a lot of traffickers just look at it as a cost to doing business, which basically for them, because they're generating tons of money, we're talking a $236 billion criminal industry that's being generated every single year. And so to them, they're like, this is a cost of business. Getting a couple $1,000 fine is nothing because I'm going to recoup that in a matter of days, if not a day. And so we've really got to crack down on some of these criminal penalties as well. So anyway, for those that are like, why does it matter? This is why. This is why there is that passion for it. And again, direct feedback from legislators. If they don't feel like their constituents care about it, they aren't going to spend the time working on these bills or carving out the time and the resources. They really need to know that people care about it. And so the more that we highlight that and we share it, it does make an impact, and your legislators do listen. And so our hope and desire is that through this impact project, Greenlight can resource more individuals to be able to effectively contact their legislators and be more informed on the policies that exist or even don't exist that we're working toward. But for other agencies, as well as you alluded to, Anna, there can be some of the fear and concern on the political climate. And am I going to compromise our standing maybe as a 501c3? Or, am I going to be suddenly grouped into a certain political party? And the answer is no, because we're policy specific. We're not party specific. And so any lawmaker who is wanting to get involved or eager to get involved with this, we say, okay, let's seize that opportunity. Let's connect and equip you. So there's some really unique ways to do that. So our hope is as more agencies get involved and resources are available, it becomes less scary, feels a little bit more doable, and can be sustainable as well. So anyway, but Anna, I'm interested to hear what brings you and your team the most encouragement as you're working through whether it's impact projects. I know we've been talking a good bit about policy. Maybe we can address it as you highlighted some of the barriers that exist in policy work. Where do you draw some of that excitement and encouragement, though, even in the face of some of those challenges that you see?
Yeah. I mean, I have to start with, we're a faith-based organization, and personally, and most of our team centers ourselves on our faith. So, without this, I feel like we wouldn't have the strength to do this work and to face such challenges. But I think, there's a quote that I love that I wanted to share also that, I think really encompasses how, encouraged or what encourages us. And sometimes, yeah, it comes from different capacities in different places. But Dr. Edith Eger, if you've ever heard of her, she's phenomenal. She said, sometimes pain pushes us and sometimes our hope pulls us.
Mhm.
And I think that really is what centers kind of my motivation behind what I do. And I know a lot of our team feels similarly. So that encourages us in a way and also drives us towards change. So yeah, but I would say with the impact projects, we get to hear what people are passionate and excited about, what they are innovating on, and what they feel like could be a win for their organization, right? It was things that motivates their team and keeps them going. So, yeah, just learning more about ways that they're innovating is, I think, the biggest thing. Yeah.
That's really wonderful. Thank you. And Anna, as we are drawing to an end for this episode, what words of encouragement would you have for those who are listening and wanting to get involved in some way with anti-trafficking efforts or maybe policy-specific efforts? But what words of encouragement would you have for them?
Yeah, yeah. I think working in policy really highlights one of our big priorities at Atlas Free and for the field is that we're better together, right? Being in policy, you need more people and more organizations and more supporters to get together and to come and support survivors and support what they need. So I think our goal is never competition in this field. It should really be to work towards the betterment of survivors and to put traffickers out of business and end human trafficking. I think that can be shared across the field. So, yeah, I think this really highlights this. Your project is phenomenal, and we're so excited about it. So, yeah, everyone listening, definitely check out more of Greenlight Operations work. It's amazing.
Anna, thank you. We are just so grateful to have you on and are grateful just to be able to link arms with you in this field and with the Atlas Free team. But thank you for joining us today. What a joy it was. And for those who have been listening, please go to Atlas Free's website as well. Check them out. They've got many wonderful resources that we know you will benefit from. But thank you again, Anna.
Thank you, Jordan.